What if a society eliminated war, poverty, crime, and unhappiness, but only by giving up freedom, individuality, and genuine human connection? That's the question at the center of Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Published in 1932, the novel presents a futuristic society that looks perfect on the surface. People are healthy, entertained, and almost never unhappy. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, the deeper you look, the more disturbing it becomes. Today, we'll break down the major characters, key events, and important themes that students are most likely to see in class discussions, essays, and tests. From your 10-minute mentor, here's Brave New World in under 10 minutes. The novel takes place in the world state. It's a futuristic society built around stability and control. At the beginning of the story, readers are introduced to the Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Center. And this place is basically a human factory. Instead of being born naturally, people are created in laboratories. Embryos are carefully engineered and sorted into social classes called castes. At the top are the intelligent alphas. Then comes betas, gammas, deltas, and epsilons. The lower castes are deliberately given fewer intellectual abilities because the government wants them to perform specific jobs without questioning anything. One of the main characters is Lenina Crown. Lenina is a typical citizen of the world state. She follows the rules, enjoys the lifestyle, and rarely questions the system. Then there's Bernard Marx. Bernard is an alpha, but he doesn't fit in. He's physically smaller than most alphas and often feels isolated. While everyone else seems happy with the way society works, Bernard is uncomfortable with how artificial everything feels. He wants deeper relationships and more meaningful experiences. Because of this, many people see him as strange. Bernard's dissatisfaction makes him one of the first characters in the novel to question whether the world state is truly perfect. One of the most important things to understand about this novel is how the world state maintains control. Instead of ruling through fear, it rules through pleasure. Whenever citizens feel stressed or unhappy, they take a drug called soma. Soma instantly removes negative emotions without causing unpleasant side effects. Nobody has to deal with sadness, grief, anxiety, or disappointment, at least temporarily. The government also encourages constant entertainment and casual relationships. Citizens are taught that belonging to everyone is better than belonging to one person. As a result, long-term commitment, marriage, and family relationships are discouraged. The goal is simple: keep people comfortable, keep people distracted, and keep them from asking difficult questions. Bernard and Lenina eventually travel to a place called the Savage Reservation. Unlike the world state, this area allows people to live naturally. Families exist, people grow old, people experience illness, people experience pain, and people experience love. While there, Bernard and Lenina meet two important characters, Linda and her son John. Years earlier, Linda had been stranded on the reservation after becoming separated from her world state companion. Unable to return home, she raised John among the local people. And because John has a mother and was born naturally, he is completely different from world state citizens. John grows up reading Shakespeare and develops ideas about honor, love, suffering, and individuality. These values will eventually put him into direct conflict with the world state. Bernard sees an opportunity and brings both Linda and John back to London in the world state. Once John arrives in the world state, he quickly becomes famous. People are fascinated by him because he's so different. He's basically treated like a celebrity. At first, Bernard enjoys the attention because John's popularity makes him popular too. But John soon realizes that the world state isn't the perfect utopia everyone claims it is. People avoid difficult emotions, and they don't form meaningful relationships, they don't think independently, and many have sacrificed their humanity for comfort and convenience. John especially struggles with Lenina. Lenina is attracted to him, but their ideas about love couldn't be more different. Lenina views relationships casually because that's how she was conditioned. And John believes love should involve commitment, meaning, and emotional depth. The two completely misunderstand each other. This conflict becomes one of the novel's most important examples of competing values. Another major character is Helmholtz Watson. Like Bernard, Helmholtz feels dissatisfied with society. However, unlike Bernard, Helmholtz is confident, talented, and respected. He's a successful writer who feels capable of creating something deeper and more meaningful than the shallow entertainment society allows. John and Helmholtz become friends because both feel trapped by the limitations of the world state. Together, they represent a desire for individuality and authentic self-expression. Eventually, Linda becomes heavily dependent on Soma. She spends most of her time escaping reality through it. Her health deteriorates and she dies. John is devastated. But what shocks him even more is how casually society treats death. Children are conditioned from a young age to see death as unimportant. As a result, nobody understands John's grief. This becomes a turning point. Enraged by what he sees, John tries to stop people from taking Soma. He argues that they're surrendering their freedom and humanity. And a riot ends up breaking out. John, Bernard, and Helmholtz are arrested. Now we meet one of the most important characters in the entire novel, Mustafa Mond. He's one of the world state leaders known as a world controller. Teachers love asking about Mustafa Mond because he explains the philosophy behind the entire society. Mond openly admits that the world state sacrificed freedom, art, religion, science, and individuality in exchange for stability and happiness. In one of the novel's most famous conversations, John argues that people should have the right to experience pain, suffering, and freedom. Mond argues that most people prefer comfort and security. This debate forms the central conflict of the novel. Is it better to be free and imperfect, or controlled and comfortable? After the confrontation with Mustafa Mond, Bernard and Helmholtz receive very non-traditional punishments. Both men are sent to islands where independent thinkers are allowed to live. Interestingly, Mustafa Mond explains that many intelligent people actually prefer living there because they're surrounded by others who question society. John, however, chooses a different path. Disgusted by the world state and disappointed in himself, he decides to isolate himself from civilization. He moves into an abandoned lighthouse in the countryside and attempts to live a simple life. John wants to purify himself and escape what he sees as the corruption of modern society. He spends his time working, praying, and trying to live a life according to the values he learned from Shakespeare. But the world state won't leave him alone. Once people discover where he lives, crowds begin gathering to watch him. News cameras arrive, curious spectators arrive. What began as a private attempt to find peace turns into a public spectacle. In a society obsessed with entertainment, even John's suffering becomes entertainment. Things get worse when Lenina visits the lighthouse. John has always been torn between his feelings for her and his belief that the world state's attitudes toward relationships are immoral. Overwhelmed by emotion and frustration, he lashes out. The crowd around him becomes increasingly chaotic, and a strange celebration begins. People start treating the event like a party rather than taking John's struggle seriously. John eventually gives in and participates in the behavior he has spent the entire novel trying to resist. The next morning, he is horrified by what happened. He realizes he has failed to live according to his own principles. Consumed by guilt, shame, and hopelessness, John takes his own life. The novel ends with authorities discovering his body. It's a tragic conclusion that highlights one of Huxley's central ideas. John could not fit into either world. He didn't belong on the reservation, but he also couldn't accept the values of the world state. In the end, there was no place where he truly felt at home. So what is Brave New World really about? The biggest theme is the conflict between happiness and freedom. The world state eliminates suffering, but it also eliminates many things that make people human. Another major theme is individuality versus conformity. Characters like Bernard, Helmholtz, and John struggle because they refuse to fully accept society's expectations. The novel also explores the dangers of technology being used to control people. Rather than forcing citizens to obey through violence, the government uses conditioning, entertainment, and pleasure. Huxley also examines consumerism. Citizens are encouraged to constantly buy new things and avoid deep reflection. Finally, the novel asks a question that remains relevant today. If comfort comes at the cost of freedom, is it worth it? And that's Brave New World, explained in under 10 minutes. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to 10-Minute Mentor for more topics you need to know, from literature and history to science and math, explained always in under 10 minutes. Here at 10-Minute Mentor, it's all about quick lessons and big ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.